Hello ladies and gentlemen, Panzer here, and today we're taking a look at Car Mechanic Simulator 2015. Now, first things first, this is not a joke simulator, this is a legitimate simulator, and it is of course the sequel to Car Mechanic Simulator 2014, which unfortunately I've not played, so I couldn't tell you what the differences are. Now, before I begin talking about the game, I want to point out over here, there's a little sound thingy in the bottom right. That actually is playing music, and now the music itself I believe is licensed, but I don't want YouTube to pick it up and content ID me, so it's going to have to be muted, unfortunately. Right, let's take a look at this game, shall we? So, first off, there are a bunch of video settings, not a lot of them unfortunately, and the game itself doesn't have a huge amount of graphics options or graphics fidelity really, because well, the detail is more under the surface rather than on it. Now you will notice these frames per second over here, it's showing average performance. This is actually only because I'm recording at the moment, so it's jumping around a lot. So it normally does run at a steady 60 frames per second or higher. Regardless of your computer specs. I think most computers at this stage will be able to run it without any issues. Audio settings fairly limited as well. Ambient noises can be on or off. It depends on how you like to do that. And of course there is a car showroom and what appears to be a classic mode. There's an option available for mods. I think this is coming in the future, so it's not available yet. Now, game settings, there's a bunch of these as well. Nothing to really look at here, actually. Not much to really look at all. However, there is an option here for zooming and for when you're mounting and unmounting parts, and I'll get onto that later on. But basically what that does is it moves the camera in such a way that it's supposed to let you see what you're doing a little bit better, but in most cases it depends on your angle and it can screw up quite badly. And of course options for alternative keyboards right here, which is quite nice. Right, so we're going to continue here, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about what this game is actually about. Alright, here we are, and this is our garage, where we are a car mechanic. Alright, so this looks like a typical simulator, actually, even graphically so, but it's a nicely detailed garage. There are some parts I haven't unlocked yet. For example, this is the paint shop, which is closed at the moment, and a test route. We can actually test drive the cars. And having seen some in demo gameplays of the 2014 edition, it's a very simple sort of test track, which is actually used to diagnose suspension issues. Alright, so to play this game we pick up a bunch of jobs here, so we can have a look at what jobs are available, and of course some of them are only available at later stages, like for example right here. There are no levels, it is just accumulated experience. And we are doing a little bit of business management as well, so there's an account balance right here to look at. Okay, so right now two jobs are available to us. There's the Reno Piccolo and the Royale Bianco. These are actually based on, I believe, real-world cars with some slight modifications here and there, but they do not have licenses for actual cars, so of course you won't see real-world cars in this game. Alright, so this right here appears to have some engine and suspension problems, so we're going to take that, and it's going to load in the car. Now we will say loading in things does take a fairly significant amount of time. It does speed up when you have the same model already in the garage, and I think that's just because it's loading in the car. So if you take another one of the same kind, your loading time will of course decrease quite a lot. So we can interact with a lot of the different parts of the car. Right now we're just in a normal mode where we can walk around, and if we want to take a look at this car we can open up the hood, and you can see inside here there's a lot of actual parts here. In fact, it's very nicely detailed. And that phone ringing right there is it telling us that there's a new job available. So now, jobs do not disappear if you just leave them alone, which is, I think, a downside to this. It takes away a little bit of that immersive factor. But if you're a fan of cars, this is going to interest you quite a lot. So if we open up our repair order, here are the things that we need to fix. We need to replace these parts. Now, some of the parts we can refurbish if they are within that condition, or we have a limit of just replacing these parts. Now, some of these have a minimum condition that we have to replace them with, so if we use brand new parts, of course, they will be at 100%. However, we can simply refurbish these old parts and try to repair them to 70% if we have the ability to do so. So we're going to have a look at one of the easier parts. Alright, right here is the air filter, needs replacing. Now the air filter is right here, so if you're a car person, you already know what we're looking at right here. And of course, WASD is where you sort of pan the camera around the object you're looking at. So we're in disassemble mode. There is also assemble mode, which is where you put the stuff back together, and examine mode, which will show you any parts that happen to be faulty. Anything that's in white is in good condition or serviceable condition, and then anything in red is what needs replacing. And using this mode, we can also look at certain parts and examine their condition as well. Some of them can only be examined once they've been removed from the car, and some of them require additional things. For example, you need an electronic meter rather to test the battery, and you need to go on the test track to test out the suspension. So we're going to stick with disassemble mode, and we're going to remove this air filter cover. Now you will notice that I can't remove this straight away because there are some clips holding it down. So anything that needs to be removed first will be highlighted in red. So if we just click on that, that gets removed. And if we go over here to the next clip, and there we go. So that's all 4 clips removed. We can remove the air filter cover. And there we go, there is the air filter. So we go in examine mode, we know that that's the part we need to remove from the car. So let's remove that. And let's go to our inventory and inspect it. Now I have a lot of parts left over from other cars that I have removed them from. And later on down the line you are actually able to repair these, but right now we can't do that. So this is the one that we've just removed. That's at 0%, so that's completely useless to us. And the air filter cover and these 4 clips are the ones we've just removed. So these are the things we need to change. Now let's just head over to the repair bench over here. And these are the parts we can actually attempt to repair. Now there is a dice roll on this. So if you fail to repair it, it could break the item completely. At the early stage this is fairly risky, however later on we can simply upgrade these. So we have 1 upgrade point available for every 1000 XP. We have 1 available right now, so we can go for one of these options right here. Anything that's in black text, of course, is not available just yet. So if I get the upgraded repair tools, I can actually just repair that to repair items with a 50% chance. Otherwise, we can also go for a tablet. I'm not sure what that does exactly. One of the weaker points of this game actually is the lack of tooltips for a lot of these things. Or we can go for fast unbolting. Now this will help us quite a lot because you have to manually remove all the bolts, so this would actually be a good idea. Let's get that. Okay, so since we can't repair anything, let's go and get another part. Now we go to the car part shop here on our computer, and if we go to engine, we can get a new air filter. So of course that's $11 right there, and that's money we spent on this job. The game does keep track of it, so it will allow you to see how much you've spent on a particular car and how much profit you're making after that. Of course you want to avoid spending too much. But at the early stage it doesn't seem to be too much of an issue. You can just replace parts with new ones without too much penalty, but I suppose later on down the line you might find some parts to be more expensive and so on. Alright, so in assemble mode right here we can see a sort of ghost part. We just sort of zoom in right here. You can actually see that that part is not there in disassemble mode. So we go to assemble mode, that's the ghost part right there, and if we right click on that, we can choose a part to replace it with. So let's put the new one in, and then it gives us another ghost, which is the air filter cover. And simply put those on, and put the clips back on. Let's try that again. And again. So that is completely replaced, and it's very easy to see what parts you need to put back on. Of course you can't send a car back out when it's missing parts, but at the same time it's kind of easy to see where everything's supposed to go, and it's very hard to really make a mistake with that. And every part, of course, is nicely labeled so you can tell the difference between them. What I would like to see though is when you are at a computer, you can actually see the parts that you need to buy, so it replace on particular cars. So, for example, if this car requires a new air filter, if I go to the computer, it has a tooltip there saying I need one. That would be quite useful, because most of the time you have to manually go and check these things, which is quite annoying. Alright, so that is actually the entire game. You get cars with parts in questionable condition, and, for example, you can actually see the difference right here. This crankshaft pulley right here is in good condition. This water pump is not. So if we go in examine mode, we can actually see that. So you can actually see they have detailed it quite nicely. In fact, all the cars have a sort of rustiness on them for parts that are not brand new, so you can actually see them very easily. But that's really the whole game. You remove parts like this, just remove that, remove that, and there's the screws and bolts we need to remove as well. So this water pump has 2 of them, and there we go. So that's basically the whole game. Go back over here, get a new part. I might make this sound kind of boring, and to a certain degree, I guess if you're not really that into cars, this would be considered quite dull. Especially without the music right now, because that is actually... the music is quite nice, I would say. So it is nice to have that in the background, but yeah, otherwise it's just so silent for a workshop. And of course it is just one person working in this workshop, that being you, so it's kind of... it's just sort of deathly quiet in this place. So if you're not into cars, this is not going to interest you in any way whatsoever. So I would really only recommend this game if you are that into cars, because there is a lot to them. There's just so much to them. If I go over here, in fact, we can actually have a look at the suspension. Can we have a look at that? Oh, right. We need to move that onto the lifter. Never mind, I have one car on the lifter as well, so we can just lift that up. And we can even have a look at the running gear from underneath here. So we can go through the exhaust system. There's a fuel tank. There's the suspension over here, from the springs all the way to suspension arms and so on. So if you're really, really into cars, there's a lot to it. But for anybody who's not, I think you'd probably struggle to find this fun. There is something therapeutic, I guess, to replacing and fixing stuff, but at a certain point it will just bore you if this isn't something you're interested in. Thankfully, I am interested in cars, so of course this interests me quite a lot. In fact, finding new jobs with different types of cars, as you can see here, is something to actually look forward to. So for me anyway, this is alright, but for anybody else, yeah, this is probably not going to be your cup of tea at all. So there isn't really much else to say. I mean, aside from the test track, we could probably talk about the way the cars drive and handle, but since that's not a huge part of the game, the most of it is still repairing parts. This isn't a game that I would recommend for anybody other than the extreme car enthusiast. And that's really all I can say about it. Yes, there's a lot to do. There's not just replacement of engine parts and suspension parts, there's also bodywork, there's repainting, there's refurbishing parts, and all sorts of other things as well. But for the most part, it is just really for the car enthusiasts. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. This has been Panzer taking a look at Car Mechanic Simulator 2015, now available on Steam. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.